agenda doc too.
Okay. I sure can.
Thank you. And are you going to screen share?
Yep, I'm trying to,
Oh, I'm sorry. I dropped it in the chat. So I was like, no.
I'm not as fast as you. I was gonna put PowerPoint, but then I have an issue with the buttons on one of my computers. Welcome everybody to our first impact education of the evening. Operating multiple computers here. Give me 1 second to just get on the right screen. So we are so pleased to have you here. We are so excited to kick off our first impact education session for this evening. Tonight's series will really be focused on enhancing parent understanding of how school sites and districts establish or get funding, and then how they allocate funding, opportunities for parents and districts to collaborate to establish funding priorities. And then we also want to learn from you all. What types of engagement would be most meaningful for you? And what type of engagements have you already participated in? So we know that parents hold power. We know that you are one of our most important constituents. And we know that your voice really matters in terms of establishing priorities. And so wanting to really understand how we can deepen that level of engagement and collaboration.
So if you all are Spanish speakers, please look at the bottom of your screen or on the 3 dots at the end of the controls on your phone, and you can click interpretation. You'll see the globe. You can choose your language. If you are a Spanish speaker, you can choose Spanish. If you are an English speaker, please choose English, so that you can also hear the translation of any of our Spanish speaking participants. And if you are bilingual, then you can pick the language of your choice. Next slide, please. So again, it's just showing you how you can use your reactions if you want to raise your hand. If you want to make comments in the chat, then this slide explains how you can do all of the above. Next slide, please. And we are recording this meeting, so we do ask that folks use the chat and that you remain muted unless you are called on to speak. And we did see a question in the chat about will the recording be made available later? The answer is yes. Next slide, please. So as part of our welcome, we just like to ask everyone who is here tonight to please put your name, your pronouns, your role, and your city or school in the chat. So I'll start. I'm Shakira Reynolds. She, her, hers are my pronouns. I'm the coordinator of family and community engagement, and I live in El Sobrante. So all of us who are facilitators will introduce ourselves a little bit, really momentarily, but I just introduce myself as a way of giving you a sample of how to enter your information into the chat. So I see Casey Jones has introduced themselves, and again, please, and take your time. The instructions are in the chat, but please, we would like to know who is in the room with us, and please let us know if you are a parent, what school or city you're representing. Thank you. Guadalupe is a parent from Lake. Welcome. because again, we'd like to have a record of who joined us tonight. And you can continue doing that in the chat as we move on to discuss our meeting norms. So as this is a virtual meeting, and I think that we have been in the virtual space for quite some time now, so I think we all know how to be on our best behavior. But these are just some meeting norms for an effective virtual meeting. So if you can, try to remain on camera. It's good to see each other's faces. It also builds community. Remain available to be on mic. So if you are needing to speak, that you're available to do that. Try to avoid distractions and minimize opening other windows on your computer. Feel free to raise your hand. Try to use a phrase to indicate when you're done speaking so no one interrupts you, like I'm complete or I'm done. Be mindful of your airtime and allow other people to speak. So step up and then step back. Grab a squeeze ball or a fidget toy or something to keep you occupied, but avoid the urge to always be clicking. And lastly, and most importantly, have grace with yourself and others, because we're all figuring this out together. And again, although we've been in a virtual space for quite some time, we are still learning to build community over our screens. So hopefully you all will feel that this evening. And this is just those same norms in Spanish for people who are not auditory learners. I love for things to show up on the screen because I prefer to read things for myself. So I think with that, we are, wow, we made up our time again. We are on our About Us slide. So I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves. And we'll start with Carissa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carissa Provenza. My pronouns are she, her. I am a recent law graduate. And I'm a law fellow at Public Advocates.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be with you this evening. My name is Nicole Gon-Ochi. I'm Deputy Managing Attorney at Public Advocates. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And Public Advocates, partners with community and the district and students and parent leaders on equitable budgeting and other things. So that's why we're here tonight, and I'll pass it over to Sasha.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sasha Ritzi Hernandez, and I'm the BACEJ Coalition Coordinator. I'm really excited to be here. And I currently live in Oakland, but I work in San Francisco, Oakland, as well as Richmond. And I will pass it to Martine Blake.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Martine Blake. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Director of Family and Community Engagement and a proud Richmond native. And with that, I'll pass it to Shakira.
Well, hello, everyone. It is me again. I am still Shakira Reynolds. My pronouns are she, her, hers, Coordinator of Family and Community Engagement. I too am a proud Richmond native and product of Richmond Unified School District, now WCCUSD. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We're going to move forward to our learning goals, which Sasha is going to share with us. Sasha, are you able to?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So we are going to go over our learning goals. Are we able to have people on mute? Like, do we want to call on people to maybe, because I don't know if I can see the participants. It's okay. I'll go ahead and do it. Use my voice. Hi, everyone. So today's learning goals for our meeting is to understand why school funding matters and how school districts and a school side budget works, as well as understanding how families and students can be involved in budget decisions at the district and the school side level, as well as understand family and student advisory governing committees and their functions.
And Sasha, the agenda is
Yes,
you.
absolutely. Thank you. And our agenda today is going to be, we're going to have our opening, We're going to talk about why does school funding matter, how the money gets to the school districts. We're going to talk about the LCFF, or the local control funding formula, as well as the LCAP, the local control accountability plan. We will also be talking about how does money get to the school sites. We will have a moment for Q&A, and we also will have a little bit of a break. Then is going to be actually the part where I'll be talking to you all about the transformative family engagement standards. We will then go into intro to committees. We're going to have breakout groups. We will do a report back. And then last but not least, we will also go over the next steps and upcoming events.
Thank you, Sasha. So I'll be starting with this important question. Why does school funding matter? So we'll talk about briefly how funding gets to the school sites, why it should matter to you as parents and community members, and then why you should be involved in funding decisions. And then Nicole will talk to us about how funding gets to school districts. Next slide, please. So please answer this question in the chat. Why should you, as parents, as grandparents, as community members, be involved in school funding decisions? And if you don't know, that's an honest answer too. So whatever your thoughts are, why should you be involved in funding decisions for your school sites? And I know that I am also a parent, and one of the reasons why I think I should be involved is because it's sort of like being a customer at a restaurant. You know, the owner of the restaurant, the chef, they may think everything is great, but the customer may have a very different view of the restaurant. And so I may think, hey, there are some things that I would love to see added to the menu, or things I'd love to see them do differently or better. And though we know schools are not restaurants, it is very similar in that you are the expert in how you and your children experience our schools. And so with that expertise, you're able to help share with the administrators, exactly, Casey, to help influence priorities and be involved. What a great answer. That is exactly why we need parents and community members to be involved in funding decisions. Yes, there may be something that your grandchild needs, and maybe the school can help with that, to know where the money is going and understand how parents can support. It also helps people know where there might be funding shortages. Maybe there are fundraisers and PTAs and community resources. And so all of those things add to the richness of why all hands should be on deck when we're talking about school funding. Next slide, please. Great answers. So we just wanted to talk briefly about the clear connection between money and learning. Clearly, we need money to hire staff. And in the state of California, we have fewer teachers, counselors, and administrators per student than many other states. We need more money to support students and communities with greater challenges to realize their potential. My children have special needs, and special education is largely underfunded in our state, and most districts have to take money from their general fund in order to cover said students. And so money is limited, especially in California, which makes it more important to make sure that we use our money efficiently. And even though we have more money that has been put into our current budget, public education has been underfunded for years and years and years. We have such a hole that we need to get out of. It's going to take more than a 1-year budget or a 5-year budget to fix some of the problems we have in education. And so this is where you come in. your personal experience, your expertise is crucial in leading schools into making sure they're investing in the resources that meet the needs of your community. And in our district, we also just received a $30 million grant for full service community schools. And this is also another way where communities and families and administrators and community organizations can really have an impact on schools for years and years to come. So also, please keep your eyes and ears out for more information about how you can be involved in the shaping of our full service community schools program, because it really does, it takes a village, it takes every single one of us to improve our educational system. So with that, I'm gonna pass over to Nicole, and she's gonna talk about how money gets to school districts.
Great, thanks, Shakira. Next slide, please. So this picture talks about how our schools and our school districts receive funding. And if you think about the school or the school district as that big lake, and you see all these waterfalls, these are all the different streams of funding that sort of come together to, give our schools the money they need for teachers and supplies and computers and tutoring and counselors and enrichment, arts, and all of those things, right? So we have federal funds, we have state funds, which is the majority of the of any school district's budget. It comes from state income and property taxes. And then there's also some local sources like parcel taxes, which some of you may have voted on, or donations. And we'll get into each of these a little later. The other thing that Shakira will talk about later too, that I kind of want to just note right here, is that all of these waterfalls, all of these streams of funding go to the school district. And then the school district, for the most part, decides what goes to the school sites. There's a couple of these funds that go directly to the school sites, but for the most part, it goes to the school districts and then the school site. So next slide, please. So when we think about funding, one of the sort of questions that we might ask ourselves is, are there any rules about the use of funding? Can districts use the money they receive for anything they want? And the answer to that is mostly, because the largest part of the budget, LCFF, are unrestricted. But there are some funds that have restrictions, and here are some examples. So you can see number 2, federal funds. You may have heard of Title I or Title III, and like your school site councils, if you've been part of those are restricted, which means they have to be used for the specific purpose for which they are given to the district. So like Title I funds, for example, should be used on low-income students on academic achievement. And Title III should be used for English learner programs and services. And then there's grants, like Shakira mentioned, the very exciting full service community school grant program has the possibility of transforming a lot of schools in West Contra Costa, but it's really restricted for just those schools. And then we have sort of the weird hybrid source of funding, which are like the supplemental and concentration funds, which are part of LCFF. And so they're technically unrestricted. They can be used for anything, but they actually do have some limitations because they're equity dollars. So they have to be used to increase or improve services for the high need students that generated them. And we'll talk about that more later, but this is just sort of like a bigger picture overview about the different rules around the use of funding. And then something that's pretty important to note for you as parents and grandparents and other folks is that most actually of the funding streams do require community engagement to decide how to use the funds. So, we really, and I guess I shouldn't say we, because I'm not part of the district, but us as we are all sort of part of the public school system. I'm a parent too and a taxpayer. So, we all have sort of this right and this obligation to weigh in about what our communities and what our students and what we as parents and families need. And that's something to keep in mind, and really glad you're here to learn more about that and hopefully participate. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the West Contra Costa budget for 22-23. for this school year. And you can see that the total budget here is $455 million. There's actually likely to be quite a bit more money this year than even is reflected here because of the state budget increases that happened after West Contra Costa adopted its budget. So we'll put some links in the chat for you to learn more about that. But overall, this pie chart here shows the total amount of funding that West Contra Costa received or will receive this year. And you can see that the majority of it is unrestricted funds, 69%. And in the next slide, we'll go through all these little pie slices in more detail. So next slide, please. So this slide is probably a little hard to read, but these are some of the examples of those sort of different pie slices. So federal funds, which is about 15% of the budget, these are restricted funds. And so they have to be used for the specific purpose that they were given to the school district. So in this bucket are IDEA or special education funds. I already mentioned Title I funds, which are to improve academic achievement for low-income students. There's Title II funds to improve teacher and principal quality, Title III for English learners. And then probably many of you have heard about this, big influx of COVID relief funds that have come over the last few years. And those are included in this federal fund sort of bucket as well. I already mentioned sort of multiple times about LCFF, which is the majority of unrestricted funding in the district. And we will be talking later about the difference between base funding, which is the set amount that each student gets in the district, versus supplemental funding, which is the additional amount that every student who is low-income English learner and or foster youth receives. And then there's an additional concentration grant funding for districts like West Contra Costa, where there is 55% or more of the students who are high needs. One thing that we thought was kind of interesting or important to point out to you about LCFF is that these funds are actually used for special education. Actually, $65 million of the $307 million, which is about 20%, is used on special education. And that's because the special streams of funding for special education is not enough. It's really underfunded. So that's something important to note. And if you think about sort of like advocating on a state or a federal level, which you may or may not be doing, but there are all of these systems, right, that are even beyond the local school district that are impacting how much money gets there and what different groups of students can receive. And so here, and not just here in West Contra Costa, but in all school districts throughout the state, unfortunately, special education is really underfunded. And what that means is that there's less of the general fund that can go towards general things because, we need to provide the services for high needs students, for special education students. Okay, so then moving on, other state funds is about 13%. That includes community schools. A new newish source of funding that's kind of exciting is the ELOP program, which is for after school, before school, and summer school programs. And I think, let's see here, West Contra Costa, I believe, is receiving $18.5 million this year for that. So that is great. And then the smallest amount of funding is local. And I think that the thing to note about this kind of pie slice, particularly in a district like West Contra Costa, is that it depends on the city that passes the parcel tax. And so if your city passes a tax, then the schools only in your city will get the benefit of that. So in that way, it's restricted, and that can lead to some, differences and inequities. So next slide, please. All right, so we've been talking a lot about funding in general and all the different streams of funding to the big lake of the district funding budget. But now we're going to zero in on that LCFF portion, which is the majority of the school district budget. And next slide. And there's this poll that we kind of wanted to launch to see what your thoughts and opinions are about, like, where do you actually look to see how the district is investing in students using all these streams of funding? So could you launch the poll, please? And then I don't know if we're ready to show the results or not, but and actually we're such a small group that folks can also just unmute and like talk about this if you want.
We had 2 people take the poll. We had everybody take the poll. 83% or 5. Oh, it's going up. We had 7 take the poll. We have 86% or 6 out of the 7 folks saying that they look at the budget. And then we had 14% or 1 out of the 7 saying none of the above.
All right, well, thank you. Thanks everyone for participating. And yeah, for sure, the budget is a document that will tell you how much money the district has and what it's spent. But unfortunately, the budget doesn't really help you translate the like expenditures or the money into like programs and services to really understand how, you know, the money is being used for the benefit of students. So that's where the LCAP comes in, and the LCAP does break it out more by sort of programs and services, and this is why we're doing it. But then the LCAP doesn't actually include all the money like the budget does. So in actuality, there's not really one specific document that will tell you everything, but the LCAP and its sort of school site equivalent, which is the SIPSA, I don't even know what it stands for. Maybe Shakira or Martine can remind us.
The School Plan for Student Achievement.
Thank you. Thank you, Shakira. So those 2 documents are the ones that you as parents or grandparents or other community folks have the most sort of input into. So those are the ones you do want to kind of take a look at and try to focus on. So next slide, please. I think this is the video that hopefully will play.
Ooh, let's see how sound goes.
And we'll play it first in English and then in Spanish.
Can you hear it?
No, I don't think so.
No, we can't.
I think if you stop and then reshare with share sound, it should.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Okay, bear with me, everybody. Thank you.
Formula, or LCFF. Under LCFF, high-need students bring extra funds to their districts and charter schools that must be used to provide better services for them. The goal is to ensure every student succeeds, especially those the system has historically left behind: low-income students of color, English learners, and foster youth. Spending under LCFF is spelled out in plans called LCAPs, which parents, students, and teachers must review and help shape. There's big money involved. For example, LA Unified gets more than $1 billion each year in special LCFF funds. High-need students can get shortchanged if districts and charters don't follow LCFF's process closely. You can make sure they get it right by ensuring students receive extra, truly effective services, and that community members are directly involved in decision-making. That's what it means to deliver on the promise of LCFF.
And now we'll play the video in Spanish.
And just a reminder to folks, if you have questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat or unmute and ask them. We'll also have a dedicated Q&A time in a few minutes, but feel free, to share them now. Sorry, go ahead, Martine.
No problem.
Las escuelas públicas de California reciben miles de millones en dólares de impuestos provenientes de la Fórmula de Financiación de Control Local, o LCFF. Gracias a LCFF, los estudiantes con alta necesidad aportan fondos adicionales a sus distritos y escuelas charter, que deben usarse para proporcionar mejores servicios para ellos. El objetivo es asegurar que cada estudiante tenga éxito, especialmente aquellos abandonados históricamente por el sistema, estudiantes de color con bajos ingresos, estudiantes que están aprendiendo inglés y jóvenes de crianza. El gasto de los fondos LCFF se destina a planes llamados LCAP, que los padres, estudiantes y maestros deben revisar y ayudar a dar forma. Hay mucho dinero involucrado. Por ejemplo, LA Unified recibe más de $1,000 millones cada año en fondos especiales de LCFF. Los estudiantes con alta necesidad pueden perder las ayudas si los distritos y escuelas charter no siguen de cerca el proceso de LCFF. Usted puede asegurarse de que lo hagan bien, comprobando de que los estudiantes reciben más y realmente efectivos servicios y que los miembros de la comunidad están directamente involucrados en la toma de decisiones. Eso es lo que significa cumplir la promesa de LCFF.
Thanks, Martine. Next slide, please. So I think we're running short on time here, so I'm just gonna say really quickly that, again, LCFF is the majority of funding. School districts get a base amount, which ranges from $9,000 to $11,000 per student, regardless of any sort of characteristics. But for students that are low income, English learners, or foster youth, districts get an additional amount per student. And then districts that have a lot of students who are low income English learners or foster youth get an additional amount of money, and that's the concentration grant. And altogether, I think in West Contra Costa, there's $56 million more that the district gets because of its high need student population. And that money, that $56 million, should be used to increase or improve services for high need students as compared to all students. So it shouldn't just be used on just anything, but really those services that will close opportunity gaps for these students. And with that, I will pass it back to Shakira.
Thank you. So I don't know if anybody else, the PowerPoint, it could just be my view options. Let me change that. I have my Zoom ratio too high, I believe. All right, so we want to talk about how money gets to school sites and what makes up your school site budget. But next slide, please. So how district funding reaches our school site, and I do want to go back for just 1 second because we did have a mention of the SPSA. Which is your single plan for student achievement or a school plan for student achievement. It is the plan that each individual school site does to talk about how they will spend the funds that they receive and how those funds will benefit all student groups, but particularly their high needs and underserved student groups. So LCFF only controls the money that the district receives from the state. And then the district will decide how much each school gets. The district may pay for some things directly that school sites need, like maintenance or air conditioning or custodians, textbooks. These are not usually part of the school budget. And the district may also give some flex funds to school sites to use according to their own needs. So maybe schools decide that they need tutoring or they want to have a playworks coach or an art teacher, things like that. And this is the money that if you are on the SSC, you help decide how that money is spent. Perhaps you do more counseling at secondary schools. So this is where your expertise and input as parents and community members really help determine how funds at the school site are spent. Next slide, please. So each school receives funding from a number of sources. They receive state funds from LCSF. They also receive supplemental and concentration funds for their high need students. They're what we call the UPP. It's an unduplicated pupil count. Lots of acronyms, but it is our low income students, our English language learners, and our foster youth. And in our district, we also include our families in transition in those funds. They receive Title I and Title III funds. Those are restricted and audited by the Department of Education. Our Title I funds, many people may be familiar. If you're a Title I school, you have a Title I plan, you have a compact and a family engagement policy. And then you may have other grants, like we talked about the community school grant, and those also will have rules and regulations, and may or may not be audited. And then I believe we will be able to drop into the chat. We had a link around other funds that are available to school sites. And the whole point of an SPSA and this kind of autonomy is so that the school leaders and families like you all can say, you know, it's not a one size fits all. You don't want the district to say, hey, we're going to purchase this plan centrally. That is not what your school site and your family and your neighborhood and your community needs. And so the hope and the purpose of this kind of process is so that families and administrators and teachers can get together and decide to spend their funds in the ways that are most useful for their school community. And we know that WCCUSD is a huge district that spans over 7 cities and almost 27,000 students. And there is no way that we could decide on one thing at the district level that will be the best thing for all of our students. Next slide, please. And again, if you all, because we are a small group tonight, if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat, but you can also raise your hand. We'd love to talk with you, not just to you. So if you have any questions about anything we're talking about, please feel free to, you know, just ask or put it in the chat, and we can. Wonderful. We have a hand raised. Guadalupe.
Yes, my question is, because my daughters go to Lake and they, Epic has a time frame and they only have it allowed up to 4 o'clock. But by that time I'm still working. And so by the time I get home and, you know, trying to help her, you know, with her reading and all that stuff, by that time Epic is no longer available to her. I would like to see that be changed. Last year we had it unlimited time frame, and that was when she was at the Montalban. So now at this other elementary, they only have it till 4.
Now that is a great example of something that should be discussed with the administration, but also that speaks to family need in your particular school community. I'm sure you're not the only parent that is working beyond 4 p.m. I know Lake does have a new administrator this year, and welcome, Miss Brenda. Miss Brenda is the scout at Lake Elementary. So that is something. You also, SSC meetings, which we'll talk about what the committees are a little bit later. Those meetings are open to the public. You as a parent at Lake can attend and say to the parent committee, can we talk about, you know, increasing funding for this program so that it is available beyond 4 p.m. And it may not even be a huge cost. It may just be a difference in needing to change whatever agreement they have with the program. And so talking to your administrator or your SSC is really a great way for you to advocate for yourself and your daughter. And if you have, you know, any questions about that, you can always follow up with me. My email address is my name. And, you know, I'll see what I can do to help you, because I think that that's a great example of parents advocating for themselves and their school community. So as we explained a little bit earlier, this kind of just talks about what an SPSA is, and it's their plan of action. How are we going to raise the academic performance of all students, but particularly our high need students? So we set goals at each school, we talk about the budget, and then we look at how the budget will be spent. That is also the plan that you should be looking at each year to say, hey, did we do what we said we were gonna do? And if not, perhaps we need to move our dollars to something else, because the purpose of transformative family engagement, as well as programming and things like that, is to increase student achievement. It is not just to have fun. Fun is important, it builds relationships, but our purpose is to increase student achievement. Next slide, please. I'm way over time. And nobody texts me unless I miss it. So this is just a visual of how money gets from districts to schools. CAC, which we'll talk about later, is the parent advisory committee that is consulted around the special education plan. And these are the groups that are at our sites, ELAC, SSC, and APAC, to talk about SIPSAs. And then these are the district committees that talk about the LCAP, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about all of those later. But I do want to move us into a quick Q&A so that we can stay as close to on time as possible.
Thank you. So we wanted to just pause here for a moment for more questions. That was a lot of information about LCFF, school site plans for student achievement, otherwise known as SIPSAs. What other questions may you have about what has been shared so far? You could raise your hand, you could put it in the chat, you can unmute.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
So my name is Dominga Rivero. My daughter goes to Lake Elementary. She's in 3rd grade. I was just voted into the SSC. And so I'm basically here because I wanted to learn, like, what is it about? Basically just to learn more before I go into, like, voting for something that I don't know what I'm voting for. Or stuff like that. So I'm actually learned a lot right now with being on here with you guys. And I appreciate it. But my question is, when the SSC, when you're as a parent wants to fight for something for the kids, but then when it comes to a vote and then you realize not everybody's on the same page, then how as a parent are you able to, how do I say it, like, make it happen what you know that you need for your child or for other children that are attending the school? How do you make it happen for them to get the needs that they need?
It's a really good question. We'll talk just after this part in the training or the webinar about all of the different parent advisory committees that exist on a site. What should be happening at the site level is that, you know, we're sharing data with each of our parent advisory committees, and that feedback from parents and students are brought to the SSC, so that the decisions that you all are making are also informed by what the other parent advisory committees are saying that they need and they want. Another item is, you know, you do not have to vote on something that you don't agree with. SSCs are set up so that, you know, there's an even number of staff and an even number of parents. And so it's important that parents realize that, you know, you have that voice and you have that stake, and that structure is set up so that if you really don't agree with something, you do not have to sign over with your vote. You can stand up for yourself by not approving or not voting for something to move forward, and really indicate what you want to see happen to make the best decision. So that could be a recommendation to do more engagement or deeper engagement to really understand if that's really the need that needs to be funded, or that could be done by advocating for whatever the alternatives are in a fair process. to consider the best way to move forward. Shakira, did
Okay.
you have anything that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Dominga, for your question. I just wanted to piggyback. I think what's also really, really important is what Martine lifted is also talking to the other parent advisory groups, because there's power in numbers, but also when there are more parents advocating for the same thing, and also parents who may not be members of the committee, but may be interested in a program or service. SSC meetings are supposed to be open to the public, period, but definitely to your school community. And people can come and make public comment at SSC meetings. And so if you're feeling like you're the only person in that small group of 10 who's advocating for any program or service, you definitely can find allies from other parent advisory groups, from other members of your school community, even from your community at large, to come to your SSC meeting and help you make your point. You can meet with the principal one-on-one. There are a number of ways that you can help show people why you think that program or service is important, and see if you can get it to your school site.
Okay. Yeah, because that's one of the main reasons why I voted for myself to get into the SSC, because not only am I bilingual, and I noticed that Lake is a bilingual school, they have 80% of Latinos there, and most of the parents don't speak English. So I see how hard it is for them to communicate with teachers or staff members, because they don't have somebody there to interpret for them what they want to say, So that's basically why I, scouted all the Latino community, and I told them, vote for me. I'm going to be your voice. I'm bilingual. I speak both languages. I'm going to work for you guys, for your kids, and I'm going to do whatever I can do to get where we need to get, where your kids is getting the help they need, but also the parents.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's a really great point. And I think figuring out, like, really pushing for the level of engagement to elevate that voice in who you're representing and the numbers that you're representing is important. I also, before we move on, because I know Shakira is a stickler for time, want to shout out Ms. Rankin and want to shout out Lake. Y'all are showing up.
All right. We strong in numbers, strong in numbers. But before you change that conversation, that's why I pushed my parent to come tonight, as well as I pushed her to join the SSC board. And also she had a question in our training on yesterday, is that I tell the parents all the time, I want to give them the tools that they need to advocate for their schools at any site, but definitely the site that their students are at. And so one of the questions was like, what type of support do the newcomers get? Like, what curriculum is in place for them? Because we know some of the teachers are sub-teachers, and are they equipped to teach these babies or give them the academic support that they need in those classrooms?
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. And for those of you who don't know, Brenda is the school community outreach worker at Lake. And some sites we have just over half of our sites that have a school community outreach worker. They are also your advocate and support on campuses for parent advisory committees, family engagement, advocating on behalf of your child, from everything from your educational benefits form to anything you might need. So please, also, that is also a resource for families on campuses. And we're gonna move on to Sasha's presentation, which is about transformative family engagement standards. Sasha, I'm sorry, I can't see, so I can't, my screen. Sasha, are you, there we go.
Here I am ready. For everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Sasha Hernandez. I am the coordinator for BACEJ, which stands.
Sasha, you muted. I think you muted yourself.
I muted myself again. Okay, my apologies. I'm having some technical difficulties all day. So thank you for the patience. I was saying that my name is Sasha Ritzi Hernandez, and I am the Coalition Coordinator for Bay Area Coalition for Education Justice. And just like our name says, we are looking for education justice. And the way that we want to be able to implement that is through a collective power through different districts throughout the Bay Area. We can move on to the next slide. Yes, so I want to share a little bit of the history of BACEJ. So back in 2016, there were a lot of conversations around like, what is the baseline on how our districts are supposed to engage with families and engage families. And so through those conversations came this idea of creating focus groups to develop those standards. And so the focus groups had parents, teachers, administrators, students, and anyone you can possibly imagine in the different organizations to come together and develop what would be the standards. For a while, it was not quite, we weren't quite sure where we were gonna go with the standards. It was kind of like this thing that we had that we know was gonna support people's work to know like how to engage families. But then as the work continued, it became very clear that there was a need for solidarity among organizations in the Bay Area, because we are facing similar challenges, but also we were looking into how we can do that in a systemic way. And so that's where we decided to create a coalition, which is the Bay Area Coalition for Education Justice. And I actually have been part of this work since the beginning. So that was really exciting when I was offered the opportunity to be the coalition coordinator, because I was able to actually conduct some of those focus groups for the standards. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about what those standards are and how you can get involved. Can you go ahead and move to the next slide? So our standards are actually a set of 10 standards, and each standard is a reflection of what families felt like was the most important thing for them to engage in as far as family engagement. And so standard 1 is shared decision making. And I will be diving a little bit more into standard 1 for you all to get a sense of what each one of the standards looks like. But standard number 2 is communication and language access, which we talk about all the time. Standard 3 is student and family leadership. Standard 4, educator recruitment and retention. Standard 5 is partnerships for teaching and learning. Standard 6 is comprehensive services for students. Standard 7 is school-wide social and emotional behavioral development. Standard 8 is school, district, and community learning. Standard 9 is culture, climate, and relationships. And standard 10 is continuous improvement and system-wide capacity building. And so all of these standards actually have an indicator. And so you can switch to the next slide, because I was gonna dive a little bit more into standard number 1, because I think that it really connects to what everybody was saying. We talked a little bit about the LCFF and also the LCAP, right? And how important families' inputs and voices are for these processes. And so we have set the standard, but we also develop the indicators. And so for us to know if a district is doing a really good job at this shared decision making, then what would that look like? And so indicator 1, if someone can help me read so that I don't read everything, but I like to engage other people in the conversation. So can I have a volunteer to read indicator number 1?
Establish board policies and administrative regulations for shared power that include student and family participation in decision-making.
Right. Can somebody do indicator number 2?
Engage students and families in the development of board policy and regulations for educator and staff conduct.
And can somebody do number 3?
Establish a vision principles, and standards for family engagement that are evaluated annually by students and families.
Perfect. And indicator 4.
Include student and family recommendations and allocating resources to systemic changes that will help improve learning experiences, opportunities, and outcomes for students with the highest needs.
And since you are already there, let's see if you can do the next standard because you talked a little bit about this.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Include students and families in the design, monitoring, and implementation of the local control and accountability plan, LCAP, i.e. the school district strategic plan.
No problem. So we do talk about the LCAP and that decision making, making sure that it's part of our indicators. So in order for us to know if these things are working, we need to ensure that our families are part of the design, but also the monitoring, right? And the implementation of what it is that we say that we want the LCAP to say. Because the LCAP is a very powerful document that is a living, breathing document in which all of us can do our input and really support, ensure that whatever it is that we decide that goes into that plan is also implemented. For indicator 6 is, I have it here on the screen. Go ahead, just keep reading, keep helping me. Yeah.
Provide transparency for how student and family input is represented in the LCAP.
Right. And last but not least, indicator 7, Shakira, just go ahead.
Ensure LCAP and budget development processes and timelines are communicated to students and families, and that students and families are supported to participate in LCAP and budget development. I'm kind of excited because I feel like I see some things that WCCUSD does already. It does well. I see some areas for improvement, but I'm proud of the things we do.
Yeah, I was actually really excited when I first started listening to the conversation, and this is having someone as phenomenal, Shakira, to lead some of the work is just so amazing because we know what family engagement is supposed to look like. And there's more, some of the districts are falling behind, some of the districts are moving forward. And so me being in this space is a real, it really shows the trust and how lucky Richmond is to be able, or West Contra Costa, to be able to have people who truly care about family engagement and how to move forward with their family engagement. So I think there's another slide, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And so why the Transforming Family Engagement Standards? Why is this important? We do believe that while some districts are moving forward a little bit faster, some are actually quite behind in the way that they are engaging our families. So our hope is that one day all of the districts across the Bay Area are able to adopt our standards as part of their work. And so this is something that I feel like, in talking to a lot of parents, the different standards really represent the different issues that are currently exist in our communities. And so we are really hoping to be able to do some of that. So for what is next for us, I did provide a interest form. So if you want to know more about just the Transformative Family Engagement Standards, if you want some sort of workshop or info session about standards, if you are interested in getting involved, I will have a interest card that is going to be through a Google form that you will be able to fill out. And one of the things that is really exciting about the standards right now is that we are actually conducting a listening campaign through our Transformative Family Engagement Assessment tool, which is a tool that we developed so that families can tell us how they feel about their district and how the districts are doing in implementing these standards. And from our research, we hope to be able to create recommendations for different districts. And we are right now working with West Contra Costa, San Francisco, and Oakland. At this current moment, those are the only districts that we are working with, but we are hoping to expand. So if you know of any other organization that is interested in this work, also please reach out to me. I will also put my email in the chat. But we are really looking forward to doing this assessment so that we can do recommendations as well as campaigns to ensure that all the districts that we are currently working with are implementing the standards, and hopefully all of them will adopt those standards as well. I believe that is it. Yes.
Thank you, Sasha.
Thank
And
you
we
all.
definitely look forward to continuing the work and the connection with BACEJ. We're hoping, we're longtime partners with Public Advocates, so I don't have to say that to Carissa and Nicole. They're stuck with us already. But as we look to really more intertwine our work of full service community schools with our PACs, with our LCAP, with community, you know, all of these things are really two sides of the same coin, and we need all hands on deck to really be doing this work for the, you know, for our families and students to get the best of everything. So I just want to do a quick introduction to parent and student committees before I move into kind of the detail. In fact, I think that, Martine, if you go to the next slide, I'm just gonna kind of tell people what's on it, and then we'll go into the individual groups. So in the slide deck, and we put the deck into the chat for people. We're also going to put this on the Family and Community Engagement website page, so you will have access to this slide deck. But it kind of, in the first column, it tells you what all the committees are, and then it tells you what their purpose is, if they are advisory or governing. All of our PACs, except for SSC, are advisory committees. SSC is a governing committee. That means you have the power to vote on budgets and programs and services, and you are the determining committee. So please, please, please be aware that that is your power as a member of the SSC. And then we'll talk about the membership and the governance, and then your funding documents, which we've talked about a lot tonight, but we just wanted people to be able to see in one table what funding sources are connected to each committee. But as we go, next slide, please. As we go into detail, this is that same table in Spanish. As we go into detail about each committee, kind of the information that is on this slide we'll be talking about in detail. And Martine, did you want to go ahead and put the poll in?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty.
So this is our next poll. Go ahead and share with us. Have you ever served on any of these committees? You can choose multiple choices, so you can pick all of the committees that you have served on. You do not have to pick just one.
Okay, so
They're starting to roll in.
I see that. Okay, and we'll give it about 5 more seconds, Martine.
All right. All right, let's see what we have. So most of our parents have participated at the site level. So we have some newbies in the house that we can recruit for district level parent advisory committees. Most folks, 67% have participated on SSC. About half of the parents here have participated on ELAC, and 33% have participated on APACs. And it's a lot of acronyms. We'll go into what each means.
Yes, this was a trick poll because we used the acronyms, so you had to have known what they were. But for folks who are new in this space, we're going to explain to everybody what that alphabet soup really means. So For school site council is the governing committee at the school site that helps develop the SIPSA, School Plan for Student Achievement, and reviews it annually. And actually, you should be reviewing it more than just annually. If there are any changes that need to be made to it, every month, budget expenditures, your principal should be going over budget expenditures with the SSC, including the use of school site funds that are through Title I and LCAP, and members of SSC can be parents, students, teachers, school staff, principals, community members, but each member of SSC must be elected by their peers. What that means is students vote for students, parents and community members vote for other parents and community members, and teachers vote for teachers. And your SSC has to have parity. What that means is it has to be the same on both sides. The point of that is so that the power is shared. And so you cannot have more staff and teachers than you have parents, students, and community members, and vice versa. Next slide, please. So this is a graphic of a secondary SSC. Secondary SSCs, high schools, must include at least one student. Middle schools can include a student. So if you have a middle schooler, or if you are a middle parent and you would like to see your student get involved, that is an option. They can run for membership on their SSC. And so you see on the staff side, there should, and this one, it says 5 and 5, but the picture actually shows 6 and 6. And as many times as I've looked at this deck, I just noticed that. Teachers must be the majority on the staff side. You can have one principal and one other staff. It can be your scout, your custodian, a yard supervisor, and then on the parents, community members, and student side, it will be the same number. And I think how the numbers and the pictures got confused is because you can go up to an SSC of 12. 10 is the minimum, but you can go up to 12. And if your school is small, if you have less than 300 students, your SSC can be 6 members, 3 on each side. Next slide, please. And so this is a graphic of an elementary or middle school SSC. And again, you can have a student on a middle school SSC, but it is not required. So some sites have them, some do not. But the whole point is, again, where we have parity, we are the same on both sides. Next slide, please. Martine, I believe the next four slides are you.
That is. All right, so we have our district local control accountability plan. Earlier, Nicole spoke about the LCAP plan, or the district's strategic plan. This committee, which we call the DLCAPs, advises on the LCAP expenditures and programs, particularly with the focus on what we call our UPP, our low-income students, our English learners, and our foster youth. This committee has a right under the law to receive written responses from the district to their comments before the LCAP is adopted by the board. And so parents oftentimes will submit written concerns as part of their parent advisory committee, or written recommendations or priorities that they would like to see in this particular plan before it is adopted or updated. The membership consists of parents and students. And so this is not just an adult-centered group. This is also an opportunity for students to look at current district data throughout the year. We do mid-year data reports, and we also do end-of-the-year data reports, and make suggestions or illustrate their needs. So it's a comprehensive kind of input and membership. And the membership must include parents of students who are eligible, who are representative of those UPP students that the LCAP is intended to prioritize. So if you are a part of an SSC, whether you are a parent or student, or if you know of any parents or students that really have ways to contribute, we would love to see them as part of our DLCAP committee. And then we have our English Language Learner Advisory Committee. Any school that has 21 or more English language learners must have an established ELAC. The ELAC advises the SSC. And so they look at data throughout the year. They are engaged in terms of how well the school site plan or the SIPSA is serving English language learner students, or how well the plan is being implemented. And based on those updates that happen at monthly meetings at the site level, they advise the SSC on programs and services specific for English language learner students. This includes reviewing and certifying the school plan for student achievement annually. So before that plan is adopted, it must be reviewed by English language learner parents, and there must be signature indicating that that review happened, demonstrating that the plan was monitored, the plan was reviewed, and there was an opportunity to give advisement to the school site council. The membership of this group is made up of parents of English language learners. Parent representatives or parent representation on the ELAC must match the same percentage as the school population. So if the school has an ELAC of 6 people, for example, or 4 people, then half of that ELAC must be made up of parents of English language learner students. Other members can be parents, they can be a SCAL. I'm trying not to use acronyms, that's why I'm stumbling a little bit. They can be a school community outreach worker or SCAL. It can be an administrator, it can be a teacher. So the other half or the other percentage of the group can be made up by other members. Parents of English language learners also have the right to elect the parent members that serve on their ELAC. So you should see a ballot go out annually where you get to vote on who represents that particular population. And then we also have a multilingual district advisory committee, otherwise known as MDAC. So any district that has more than 15% of English language learners enrolled and 50 or more total Ls must have what the state calls a district English language learner advisory committee. So there's the ELAC at the site level, and then there has to be a district body that looks at district-wide English language learner data and monitors how well the district is serving our English language learner students, as well as advise on the LCAP. Parents of Ls not employed by the district must make up a majority of the MDAC. We really want to make sure that, or the state really wants to make sure that this group is represented by pure parents, and provide power to that voice, right? Without confusing things, if you will, by district employment. So it's really intended to prioritize the voice of parents. And like I said, this particular group advises on district programs and services for English language learners, including the LCAP implementation, the EL master plan, and our reclassification procedures. We also at the site level have an African American Advisory Committee, otherwise known as APAC. This is an African American committee that advises the SSC on programs and services for African American students. This group must also review and certify school site plans for achievement, otherwise known as the SIPSA. This group is not required by law. However, given that district data indicates that our African American students are not excelling or achieving at the proportionate rate to their peers, this is a district group that we treat like a state mandated group. And therefore, most of the procedures or policies that guide the actions of this group are very similar to what we have for our ELAC group. And it's intended to really ensure equity. The membership of APAC consists of parents and caregivers of African American or Black students. You do not have to be Black to be on APAC, but you do have to have an African-American child, and that would include mixed children. Other members, other community members, school staff, and district staff may also attend the meetings. Similar to ELAC, parents of African-American and Black students have the right to serve and select the membership of their APAC. At the district level, similar to MDAC, we have an African-American advisory team, which we call ASAT. ASAT advises on district-wide programs that serve African-American or Black children. They govern, or they don't govern, excuse me. They advise on the district's ASAT resolution, which is very similar to the English language learner master plan. So this is the district's strategic plan to serve African-American students and close the achievement gap for African-American students. Membership of the ASAT is extended to all members of a school site's APAC. An ASAT delegate is a member selected by their site's APAC, and those are voting members. So while anybody can serve on ASAT and be a member of ASAT that's on an APAC, only delegates are voting members of ASAT. Staff members also attend ASAT meetings to represent district leadership.
All right, and this is me. I was trying to answer a question in the chat. There was a question that, there we go. You can still, as a supporter of English language learners, you can still join the ELAC, and then you can still, as a member of the ELAC, raise your voice there in terms of program and services for English language learner students. And for all students, you can also seek membership or input at the SSC level. And so all of you at district school sites should have, over the past month, received outreach from your school sites to join all of these committees. And finally, last but not least, we also have the Community Advisory Committee on Special Education. This committee does not have a site equivalent. This committee is for input on the plan for special education. This is the only advisory committee. It also has to be a majority of special education parents, but it is a community advisory committee. So it includes former educators, community members, anyone who is interested in programs and services for special education students. Next slide, please. And this is also a committee that is required by Ed Code. And again, the majority of the membership must be parents, and the majority of parents must have children with special needs, but it is open to the community at large. There's not an election of membership, but the school board, the membership is approved by the school board once a year. So it is presented to, the list of members is presented to the school board, and the membership is confirmed. I am the current co-chair of this committee because, as I said, I am a SPED parent. And so it is also a place where you can come and hear about the programs and services that exist in the district. The SELPA director comes to every meeting and does a report about the special education department, gets feedback from members. So this is my shameless plug for joining us if you would like. CAC meets on the first Monday of every month. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to go over what are the opportunities that exist if you serve as a committee member. You can use your personal expertise to advise on the program, services, and budget decisions at your school and at the district level. You can provide insight to direct funding. So we had a question earlier around, hey, we'd like a program at our school to be accessible after 4 p.m. These kinds of decisions, these groups are where you can give that level of input. You can serve as an equity advocate for low-income students, English language learner students, to ensure that they have the opportunities and resources to meet their full potential. I love that people put comments in the chat about helping student groups that their own children may not even be members of, because again, it takes a village. It takes all of us wanting all of our students to have the best. And so it is not about your child alone. It is about us doing what is best so that all children get what they need. And we know that equity is not that all children get the same thing, but that they get what they need to be successful. And success looks different for different children and different families. And also you can better understand how school funding, budgeting, and program development works. And next thing you know, you'll be in these meetings when people are talking about all these acronyms and you'll know them right off the top of your head. So what you can expect, what should be happening at all these committee meetings is review of data, creating plans, how we monitor the plans, when the plans are adopted. You should have identify resources that can help identify student needs. It is also a place where your questions should be answered. We don't want you to fear going into these places because you don't know everything you need to know yet. It should be a welcoming space where you can come and find out the information that you want and need to be more and more involved. And you should definitely have input into your SIPSA and LCAP plan creation. Next slide, please. And wait, back one. So what to do if your school committee isn't meeting expectations? There are some times when school groups are not functioning the way that they should, or parents are not feeling like their voices are being heard and respected. And so these are just some steps that you can go through. First, you could talk to your principal. You could reach out to me. Part of my job is the compliance of your school site committees. And so, you know, I'm a good person to ask, hey, where do I go with this? This has been the issue. Can you help me? You can engage your executive director. All of our schools, we have 3 executive directors by network. So every school has someone that is over your principal before you get to the CAO. And we want folks to understand their chain of command so that you can reach out to all of these people if you need further support. And at your district level committee, you would contact the director assigned to your committee. So Martine is the director assigned to DLCAP. Isaú Orozco is the director assigned to MDAC. Right now, there is no director of African American Student Achievement, but there are 2 coordinators in that department, and CAC, the director, is the SELPA director, Dr. Sonia Neely Johnson. And then beyond that, you can reach out to the CAO, Dr. Hurst, and even the board if you're feeling like your district level committee is not meeting your expectations. Next slide, please. I think our next slide is Q&A. And I think as we've been doing before, we're probably just going to open up the room for questions. So you can put them in the chat or you can unmute yourself. If you have any questions about our site level packs or our district level packs. And later on, when we get to next steps, we will drop the schedule of when all the groups meet, how you can join, visit, be involved. So we'll give you that at the very end.
Any questions about parent advisory committees? I saw a question answered in the chat about being a voting member. Oh, it's not answered in the chat. So Guadalupe asked in the chat, how can I be able to, did you answer this verbally, Shakira? Oh, okay, just kidding. Any other questions about advisory committees or SSC composition? Feel free to unmute, answer your questions in the chat.
I just want to say thank you guys so much. You guys really educated me on what my role is and what I can do. And all this information was super helpful. I did write it all down because I want to have it for my own notes. And but thank you guys all so much. I mean, I really appreciate you guys having these kind of meetings where us parents that are new to this SSC or any of those communities, we are able to understand what our right is as a parent. And I learned that today with you guys. So thank you guys so much. And I feel more confident being in this committee, and I know what I can do now.
Oh, that means so much. Thank you. That's why we're here. That's what we do it for. Thank you.
And yes, Casey put in the chat, no question, just taking it all in. It's a lot of information. It is a lot of information, Casey. And you know, you'll probably need to hear it and read it more than once. Some of us are old pros, and I started out as a parent leader, joining DLCATS, joining CAC, joining ASAT when my oldest son was in kindergarten, and I knew nothing. And it really just is about people not being afraid to, you know, just step out there and try to do the work. You can't do it wrong. Because what I did know when I came in is I knew what it meant to be a parent. I knew what my kid needed. I knew what was and was not serving us as a family at school sites. I knew what was going well, and that's what the system needed to hear. And then the things that I didn't have, I learned. And so this is the beginning, just even having the courage to get involved beyond just, hey, I have my kid, I help them at home with reading their homework, which is super important, and we applaud that too. But when you step out to say, I'm gonna go beyond my home and see what I can do for our school site and other children and our district as a whole, that's where change happens. Because nobody knows, like parents and students, what the experience at our schools are. And so your voices are invaluable. And if you don't take away anything else, we want you to understand that as much as you may not know, you are experts in so much that we need to learn from you. So this should be a give and take, and we learn from you all too. So, but yes, Dominga, thank you so much. You know, sometimes when we come to things honestly, and we're like, oh, the group is really small, but like, that's exactly what we needed to hear, is knowing that it made a difference for someone, anyone. So we really appreciate all of you spending your evening with us. And we're gonna move into, we were gonna do breakouts, but since we are small but mighty bunch tonight, we are going to break on in. We're gonna stay here and work together in this this little family we've created tonight from 6 to 8 p.m. And just talk together. And Martine has some questions, but really what these questions are really directed toward you all as family and community members about what you're experiencing in our schools. So we really want to hear your experience. Our plan was just to be a fly on the wall. And so that's what we would like is to hear from you about your experience.
Yes. So we wanted to just open up the floor for a couple of questions, like Shakira said, so that we can also learn from you all around what we can do better. So we have a couple of questions. Our first question that we want to hear is, what do students and families need from the district that they are not getting right now? What do you need that you are not getting in this moment?
I'm gonna answer that question, and I'm gonna speak for the parents that I know. What we're not getting is for the newcomer kids that don't speak English. They need that extra, I would call it tutoring, but it would be more helpful if you would get more bilingual teachers for the district that you guys see, that you guys have a very high percentage of Latinos. Me personally, my daughter has been at Lake since kindergarten. She's in 3rd grade, so that's approximately 4 years now. And I see how parents and kids are struggling with English. There is a lot of kids that do not, their first language is not English. And they're sitting in a classroom where the teacher does not speak Spanish. So they're just sitting there like, okay, what's going on? Like, what is he saying? What is this? What is that? And then you send them home. And I speak for the Latino community because the majority have to work. So they get home around 6, 7, and they rely on these after school programs, or they rely on whoever's able to take care of their kids for them while they're at work. So they don't know what's going on with the kid at school. And then when they come to the school in the mornings, they're like, oh, do you know if the kids had homework? Do you know if they had to do their Zern or Lexia? And I'm interpreting for them from the teacher because he doesn't speak the Spanish to be able to speak to them. I don't have a problem with it because I love my community. I love helping out, especially the teachers at Lake. Anybody that needs help, I'm there for them. But that's what we need right now from the district. We need Spanish-speaking people, interpreters, teachers. I don't qualify as a teacher because I never went to school to be a teacher. I'm a 24/7 stay-at-home mom since I had my younger daughter, but I had 3 other older kids that were in San Francisco district. And let me tell you that San Francisco district, they go out their way for the Latino community over there. It was amazing the years my kids spent in the San Francisco district, because the district really helped them with the Latino kids, you know? I'm not seeing that here in this district. That's what's pushed me to the SSC, because I want to push for that, because I do want to help these newcomers. I do want to help all these parents that speak Spanish and want to speak, but they hold their voice in because they know nobody understands what they're saying. So we can get that. Wow, that would be such a big help. Like, I don't mind, spending some of my time at the school and helping out. If I can be a volunteer, I'm up for it. Everybody knows that. I don't really mind. But yes, if we can get that, that's what we need.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
And you are a teacher in your own right. You're teaching us right now. You're a mama. You teaching every day. Invaluable.
Thank you.
Invaluable skills. And what you're saying right now really matters a lot in terms of making sure there's language access and language equity, particularly to engage parents and support learning at home, but also in the classroom, right?
Yes.
For sure. Others, are others want to chime in on that? Or on the second question, how do you see yourself engaging or participating in the district or your school site? Are there any barriers that prevent or make it difficult for you to participate? So again, I heard a lot in the prior response around language access, right? You could either echo that or respond to number 1. Are there barriers to engagement, and what do you need?
Stephanie put in the chat that there's a lack of two-way communication, and Peach Jar and Parent Square are not enough. It was different when parents had the opportunity and space to go to schools and receive support and build relationships with their child's teacher. So much has been lost in the last 2.5 years. And I agree. I thought about even being here in the virtual space. We've gotten used to it, but I think there's almost a fear about rejoining each other in person. And you lose a lot behind the screen. You know what I mean? And every parent, Peach Jar, and Parent Square is better than Peach Jar. For those of you who may not know, Parent Square is the new communication tool the district has moved to this year, where you can receive translation in your home language. You can send a message in your first language back to the staff or the school site. But there has been so much loss due to COVID and not being able to have face-to-face interactions. And also the lack of staff stability is making everything extremely difficult. Everything keeps getting rescheduled and postponed, and it's been difficult to adjust. That was also from Stephanie in the chat.
Are there any others that we haven't heard from? Thank you.
Casey, I'll speak up to number 2. So I'm the parent of a kindergartner at Murphy, and trying to be as active and involved as I can be. But sometimes I feel like all of the acronyms, as we've talked about tonight, are kind of thrown around, and sometimes maybe parents who want to be engaged or know what something is, it's put off because it's spoken about in these acronyms, and people don't take the extra time to look it up and figure out what it means. So the school that I'm at is a Title I school, and we recently received our family engagement policy a few weeks ago, and I took the time to read it. And I have questions, like about our school site council. I haven't seen any kind of a notification of a meeting. I look at every single Parent Square post. I appreciate the post. I've volunteered for the opportunities that have been presented, but in the same way that some of the other parents have echoed, and it's something that you guys probably are tired of hearing, that just, with the lack of support in the schools right now, that it's a system-wide problem, that I'm seeing that, the principal has a hard time getting her job done when she has to be in the classroom. Same with the school community worker when she has to fill in the office or whatever it is. So, I'm just like, if I got my badge last week, my volunteer badge, it can be available to, at times fill in the gaps at the school, so that the people, the teachers, admins, like everyone can do their job to make all these other things happen for our kids. But at the same time, there's not just like a family engagement policy page that I can go to, on our school website, or maybe not even, I don't know, does the district have one either, to find all these easy ways for you to just learn and be involved as a parent.
It's a really good point. Making it very accessible to show up and engage, especially if you're that parent that wants to be involved. And kindergarten is so special. Like, that was my oldest was a kindergartner 2 years ago. So that was like my first experience, and I wanted to do everything. I can definitely relate to the search and trying to figure out and being that parent. Not saying that you are, I was. Thank you for that.
I just dropped a document. It's about 9 pages if you're interested in light reading.
But it echoes the point.
Yeah, and I created that document as a parent. I took some that I had gotten because I was like, I need to know, and I know other people have questions. It's some websites and different things like that. Again, if you want some light reading to find out, but I also think that's really good feedback that we need to make it easier. We need to have like a one-stop shop where parents can get all of that kind of background information to hit the ground running. Thank you. And Lake is going to be doing a parent meeting in person. Wonderful.
Nice.
So this is really good feedback for us too, because again, we don't always know what's happening at all 54 of the sites. So it's good to hear about the experience on the ground.
I think one more thing that people forgot to mention, that there was a lot of parents saying that they would love to volunteer, but I think they were saying that the paperwork and everything that they have to go through to be able to be a volunteer in the schools is what pulls them away from trying to volunteer or wanting to help.
Thank you. That's good feedback. As well, we can go back and look at the process. We still have to do the background checks by law, but any suggestions on how to simplify it in addition to that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
At one point, we were also looking at how do we remove some of the unnecessary barriers through the background checks as well.
And we also know that we've had some people reach out to our office directly. People are concerned about, immigration status for undocumented families, but we do not share any of our information with any outside agencies. We just get the background check, and we've been using this same company since 2012, and we've never had any issues of cross-reporting or anything, but the questions do continue to come up, and we understand them, but it's not, it's not in any way connected. We just need to make sure that people are safe to be able to volunteer at our schools.
And I just also like to say that what I do is the parents that want to become involved, when they have to fill out the form or be a mentor, I support them. Even if they have to speak Spanish, I have support in that area too as well. So I do let the parents truly know that there is a protocol to become a volunteer, and it's for the safety of their children, because we don't want no ever anybody on the campus because we don't know what their background is like. So I do really stress that very much so.
I have a question regarding the whole volunteer. I understand because I've been a volunteer at West Contra Costa. And I want to know if there's a difference between being a volunteer and sometimes at my niece's school, they used to have a visitor's pass because I know my sister would help out at her school and it was as a visitor, not as a volunteer. Does the West Contra Costa district have that same policy, or does everyone that go into campus have to have a volunteer, have to go through all the requirements for volunteer work?
So if you are volunteering on campus, let's say you're a guest speaker, you're going to be there for less than an hour, that is something that you could get a day pass for. But if you're going to be going on field trips, volunteering over time, then you are expected to go through the volunteer process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have this time flew by. We have just a little over 10 minutes left. And what we wanted to share, we're going to put a lot of links in the chat. Martine just texted us and said, oh, I got all 20 links that go with this slide. But in the chat, what we're dropping are the links for the meeting schedules. And don't worry, if you put when we have our evaluation form, if you put your information on the evaluation form, we can send you all of this by email. But what we have are scheduled meetings for each of the central level PACs, ASACs, MDAC, DOCAPS, and CAC. CAC is back to doing in-person meetings. They'll be doing hybrids. So they will have an in-person meeting, and they'll also have a virtual option. And then there is a one-pager that shows you where all of the dates for the committees are, because each one each of our committees has sort of a meeting rule, if you will. DLCAPS is usually the second Tuesday of the month from 6:30 to 8:30. CAC is usually the first Monday. So CAC has not put out their year-long calendar. So what we shared with you is their webpage, so that that's where they put their most updated information. And then Martine, we also put our department's webpage, and then there is a one pager, like I said, with all the committee's meetings mapped out for the year, including, like in March, MDAC goes to an English learner. They go to an English learner conference called CABE, so you'll see that on the form. And what Martine also just shared is the big events calendar. That is the calendar that goes on our webpage, on the district website, and everything that happens, board meetings, anything that happens at the district level, that'll show up on that calendar. So again, it's a lot of links, but if you can snatch it out of the chat, it is great to have. And if you cannot, make sure you give us your email on the evaluation form, and we will be sure to send these things. We will be able to send these things to you all. And I think that there was also from Sasha, and she might have had to get off. I don't see her with us anymore. Sasha actually graciously joined us tonight. She actually is heading out of the country tonight to take her grandma back to Mexico. And so we might have lost her, but there is an interest form for people who would like to get more information about BACJ and workshops around transformative family engagement and things of that nature. So I think Martine will also be dropping that in the chat for us. And then we can move forward to our optimistic close.
Somebody else may have to take that.
I will do that.
Thank you.
So our optimistic close is simply that. After all of this information and all of these conversations, we always want to end on an optimistic note. And so what we'd like, and you can just unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat, how will you use your personal experience to impact your school communities this year? That is what the title of this series is, Impact Education. And again, the tagline, which came after much thought and deliberation, is be the change, see the change. So if you yourself are the change that we are seeking, then you will see it because we're working together. So what can you commit to in order to impact your school communities this year? And it can be the smallest thing, or whatever you are able to contribute, from helping your child at home to some of the things Dominga talked about her already doing. Coming here tonight, it was your first step in impacting your school communities. Casey said she'll attend SSC meetings and maybe join the council. That's exciting. Kindergarten parents put them to work from the beginning, and you hooked them for 13 years. That's great.
What I would do is be more involved and volunteer as much as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I saw there's a grandparent with us, and that's super great when grandparents are helping support because you have raised your children already. And here you are again for another go round. Stephanie says she will continue to keep the district on its toes. I know you will. Continue to volunteer and advocate for my grandchild, and thereby advocate for others. That is wonderful. Thank you all so much. Again, this has really been heartening, like I said, for me personally, and really feeling like people got a lot out of what we shared tonight. Also, community partnerships are super important. We say it all the time, but I want to say again how much we appreciate public advocates and Sasha joining from BACJ. I'm sure I've driven Nicole crazy in the planning of this workshop, but she always smiles as if I did not. Carissa, this is her first time. Carissa is new to public advocates, and we just threw her in, and she said, well, I'm gonna watch. And we said, no, we're gonna put you on the slide, and you're going to participate. And so it's been really wonderful. We look forward to continuing that relationship and expanding it. And please, if we in family and community engagement can support you all in the work that you'd like to do in impacting your school communities, we would really appreciate it. We'd like to thank Raina, our interpreter for the evening. And of course, my partner in crime, I don't know, about Martine, but I always feel like we're almost like Wonder Twins activate. So I always appreciate her support, but mostly we appreciate you all for showing up and sharing your experience. And we want to thank you in advance for the work and the change that you're going to do, and hope that you continue to join us in this space. Ms. Brenda, thank you for bringing Lake out tonight. We know we can always count on you. And so what we like to do is ask you all to fill out the evaluation thank you. Fill out the evaluation for tonight's program. And like we said, if you are interested in receiving the information we shared in the chat and a copy of the slide deck, then please make sure that you put your contact information on the evaluation form. Martine, did you drop the evaluation in the chat? I might have, yep, she did. I almost missed it chatting. Thank you, Miss Brenda. She says she'll continue recruiting strong parents like the one she has found to be on all 3 committees and attending this workshop. And again, there is the feedback information. Carissa and Nicole dropped their information in the chat. We also have that. So if you put your information on the evaluation, we'll make sure that you know how to get in contact with all of us. And I think, look at that, and with 3 minutes to spare, we would like to say thank you. So anybody else on the facilitation team, anybody want to unmute yourselves and say anything? We have 2 minutes to spare.
I just want to echo the appreciation for our community partners who are here to support you in advocating for your rights as a parent. Stephanie Cicada is almost like an honorary partner / super parent. And, you know, as a fellow mom and employee, like I really appreciate you taking out the time to empower our system, to speak up for what you need and to speak up for our babies. Thank you so much.
And Shakira's doing a lot of the talking and the props giving, but you know, Shakira's the one that got everyone here, got everyone organized. So just wanted to give props to Shakira and Martine for your great, you know, leadership and your genuine, you know, care for the community. I work in a lot of districts across the state, and y'all are special, you know, so props to you.
And I'm going to publicly say, maybe we'll repeat this. And so tell someone and bring a friend, and we can come and do it all over again. And it's like taking a test. And the next time we do it, see, Casey, if you come back with a friend, you'll know all the acronyms. You already got the cheat sheet. So this was wonderful, and we hope it's just the beginning of so much more. And again, thank you all for spending your Tuesday evening with us. It is 7:59, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I have a little one banging at my office door. I hope you guys didn't hear him and he wasn't too loud, but he doesn't care, even if you did. But again, thank you guys so much. And we look forward to this being one of many. This has been wonderful. So you guys have a good evening.